Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Tech Your Business podcast. Today, we're talking about an interesting topic that I'm sure will pique the interest of a lot of business owners who are listening in today. There are a lot of times you have ideas of tech solutions you can build in your business. There are a lot of times you think of those ideas, and by the time you think of building them, think of the code, think of the process and everything, you give up. Today's guest is a guest that has a solution to that problem. Our guest today, Dinesh Varadharajan, is the Chief Product Officer at Kissflow. So today on the Tech Your Business podcast, he's going to tell us about Kissflow and what Kissflow does for businesses. So welcome to the show, Dinesh.
Thank you so much, Peter, for having me on your podcast today. As you rightly said, uh, low code enables the business users to solve problems that was not possible before, right? Because every time I want to, as a business user, if I want to solve something, then I want to rely on IT, right? Because I need to go to the IT team, ask them to solve the problems. And pretty much if you look at any business, the IT teams are fairly small, right? So they need to solve pretty much every other business user's problem, right? So I want to solve something, it goes to a huge backlog and it's never solved, right? And that's the problem that no code or low code platforms are trying to solve, right? So wonderful having this conversation with you, and we'll probably explore how this solves the problem the business are facing now.
We all hear about no code.
Mhm.
We've heard about low code. So can you just let us know the difference between low and no code?
Okay. So low code, before getting into that, we'll probably talk about how the whole evolution is happening. All right. If you look at, we call it a semantic gap. For example, you have computers and you have humans. All right. And we always want the computers to solve our problems. But can I directly talk to the computer? I can't, because computers doesn't understand our language, right? So there is a particular language which I need to learn to talk to the computers, or uh, at least ask the computer to solve my problem, right? And that's the gap. And in the last 20, 30 years, the new evolution of languages are trying to reduce this gap, right? When you had assembly language, probably we had a few thousand programmers who understand that language and talk to the computer. And then we had C, where we have like probably like few million programmers, right? Java introduced, at least increased that number, right? And with Python is the most simplest language, or probably other languages as well. Now we have like few million new programmers who can talk to the computer. But even now, the business users who actually have the problem can't talk to the computers without knowing these languages, right? And when the low-code paradigm started, uh, the low-code products that trying to reduce the semantic gap, they said, okay, you don't have to write so much of code. I'll probably create a lot of abstractions. So you can talk to the computers without completely knowing the language. That's the low-code paradigm. So nothing is changing. The computer languages and the artifacts still remain the same. If I have to solve the language, I need to still understand how the computers work. I need to still understand how do I create a table? What is a database? Right? How do I query the computer if I want to get some information? Just that instead of writing like so many lines of code, there is an abstraction which I can use to reduce the amount of code I am writing. That's the low code paradigm. While on the other side, no code says you don't have to even understand what the computers want, how the computers operate. Just I have a very high level of abstraction, and as a no code product, I understand what you want from the computer, right? Just use my toolkit and I will talk to the computer on your behalf and get the work done. That's the no-code paradigm.
Hmm.
So one, you need to still understand how the computer works, that is low code. And you don't have to understand how the computer works. Rather, you work with a toolkit that is provided by the no code or framework that is provided by the no code products. So you don't have to understand how the computer works and still get the work done. This is the difference between two paradigms.
Interesting. Interesting. So, what makes this low code valuable for businesses?
Okay. So most of the time, just that this translation is quite expensive, right? Because you need translators. The translators are the programmers, right? So only
Yeah.
they can talk to the computer, and the programmers are foreign few. So if you take any organization, you have fairly limited number of programmers. And when you have limited number of programmers, they can solve the most complex problems that adds a lot of value to the business. But if you look beyond that, there are thousand other problems that are not very critical for the business, not very complex, but that are absolutely needed for the business to run. So the programmers will never have the bandwidth or the time to work on these thousands of simple problems, right? That's where the no-code platform can enable the business to solve it themselves without relying on IT,
Hmm.
right? So I have a problem, I don't have to go to IT. So I can directly use these platforms and solve the problem.
Hi there, this is Seb Brantigan, co-founder of DBSS Digital, and you're listening to the Tech Your Business podcast.
What common business tasks or workflows in the business can be automated with these low code tools like Kissflow?
Okay. So could be anything, right? They're like very, very interesting examples. If you look at all my clients, even this particular case, you're running a podcast, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have a very, very structured way of running this podcast. I got your mail talking about the guide, the podcast guide. It's very structured way of running this. But again, if you are running like at least 10 or 20 podcasts a month, then it becomes a serious problem for you, right? Because you need to manage the connections, you need to send the guide, you need to get the signatures, you need to run the broadcast, record, fine tune, and then publish. There's a very clear workflow involved here,
Hmm.
right? And if you look at any team, you take any team, every team in an organization will have hundreds of use cases like this. And those are the problems you can solve using a no-code product, right? Very simple way of at least getting the list of it issues is going through your Google Drive or O365,
Mm-hmm.
right? Any spreadsheet that you manage is an application that can be automated. Any huge mail thread you are managing your inbox is another application that you can automate because things are getting lost. You have like so many spreadsheets, so many mails, right? If you want to actually go and track all the podcasts that happened in the last 1 month, right? Trying to figure out how many views I got, how much time it actually took to complete the editing of the podcast. It's extremely difficult without having a tool, right? So
Yeah.
this is what we call as the long tail applications. You have core applications in enterprise that are extremely critical for the organization. We normally equate that is a car. If you take a car, the core applications are like the engine of the car. Without that, the car can't run. But it is not just the engine that runs the car. You need the transmission, you need the suspension, right? You need the drivetrain to run the car. These are invisible parts of the business, but without that, the business can't function. And the no-code platforms allow you to automate all the invisible parts of the business.
For these low code platforms, you said people in the company can easily just create what they want. But what kind of skill level, what do they need to know before they are able to comfortably build apps on these low code platforms?
Okay. probably sounds nothing, literally nothing, right? No code is not a new phenomenon. There, if you look at, the first no code tool that is like super popular is spreadsheet.
Hmm.
And the business users are developing and managing this application for decades now, right? From the days of Lotus Notes to spreadsheets to pretty much all the simple tools they have. Just that all these tools are not designed to solve the no code problems. Accidentally, the businesses are using those tools to solve their problems, right? So we always had a layer of business users who are super interested in solving their problems themselves, right? So they're not special. They don't have any technical expertise as such. Just that they're interested in solving their own problems. And the no code products like Kissflow are super simple, right? You don't have to understanding anything about computers or programming, right? You have to just log in, and if you know the problem you want to solve, then you'll be able to easily solve it using the product. Right? So there is nothing like a special skill level that is needed to solve these problems. That's the maturity of the no-code platforms the last 1 or 2 decades.
Interesting. So you just gave an example with this podcast, for instance, because we actually, like you said, have a workflow from getting the guests in to preparing their episode to the actually preparing before the interview, having the actual interview, then producing, creating a marketing material, contacting the guests, and then sending the episode out. And like you said, tracking the analytics of that episode. So now, for other companies with small teams and probably no developers or something, what process would you recommend they use so that they can identify workflows like this that they can automate?
Okay, so that, as I said, there are thousands of use cases, but the easy way to prioritize is based on three needs. All right, one, the business need, and the compliance and governance need, the second one. All right, and the third one is the complexity, the technical complexity. All right, so can I do it as a business, or do I want assistance from the IT to do it? The first one is the business complexity. If I'm picking, I have like a huge backlog. If I'm picking something, then I need to probably ask you like a few questions like how important this is for my team, or how important is it for the organization. There are, like, we call it a pyramid of applications. In the bottom you have uh, the team applications, right? The applications that are needed to run my team. The next one is called departmental applications. For example, if I am from the finance, I might want to create an application which can be used across different departments. From HR, probably create something like vacation request, which can be used across all the departments. The next one is enterprise applications. The applications, for example, if I'm running the bank, it is the end user banking application, right? And the third one is probably hyperscale. For example, if I am running the e-commerce company, I need to create an e-commerce portal, right? The
Okay.
no-code products allow the users to create the bottom two layers of this pyramid, right? That if I belong to a team, the needs of the team I'll be able to resolve. And if I belong to the department, I can create an application which can be used by other departments in an organization. So first, try to figure out who will be using this application and the ROI of using this. For example, if I have there are a lot of customers who are able to save significant amount of time and money by automating these applications. And we have an ROI calculator on the website, right? Go to the ROI calculator, write down the use case, write down how it is solved without this automation, the time it takes, the number of iterations it normally take to solve the problem. And then literally create a priority list of applications you want to automate. Then try to see if there are any governance and compliance risk in automating all of this. Because here the business is automating. They may not actually know the compliance implications, right? They may not understand the security and privacy challenges in automating these applications. That's the next level of evaluation. Once that is done, then get into the technology challenges. For example, is it a standalone application? Does it have to integrate with other systems that already have in an enterprise? And if I have to talk to other systems, then I may not be able to solve it, right? I need to still work with IT to solve it, right? So ask this question. There's a framework. So probably as part of the podcast, I can share the links as well, right? The users can go through this framework and they need to probably ask these questions and then prioritize the use cases they want to automate and then probably go and automate all these use cases as well.
Hmm. Another place where businesses will have to make decisions is there are points where you can easily buy a solution, an already packaged solution to solve that problem, or you can use these low code platforms to build a solution you can use within the company. So, what factors should guide which apps should be bought already packaged or
Mm-hmm.
which apps can be built with these solutions?
Okay. So typically, the most common use cases, right, in any organization, as long as there is no differentiator, you can directly go and buy the product. For example, I am trying to manage my task, right? My to-do list, or I want to manage the CRM or the ERP, right? Again, I wouldn't say it's out of the box, but to a very large extent, pretty much all the organization follows the same, they have the same challenges, right? There you directly go and buy off-the-shelf products. But again, anything that is specific to the way that you're operating, there you need to probably build something on your own. Most of the time, what we do is my use cases are specific, right? But I settle for something that is already available. Right? There I am actually using my, like, I operate differently, right? In the sense, I will probably take an example. There are like a lot of examples. Like I'll probably give a very interesting example. There is something called we have an aviation company as a customer, right? And they operated off the beautiful remote islands around the world. And you don't have huge, like big terminals, fuel terminals out there, right? So when you actually have a private plane flew into any of these islands, you have a tanker which actually comes and fills the gasoline for you, right? Before this product, they used to get a signature from the pilot, take a photograph of the invoice, send it to the backend processing team, and they raise an invoice after like a week or two, right? And when they introduced Kissflow from a week, they actually created a digital form, get a digital signature, and when they submit, it directly comes to the backend processing team, and they immediately the system automatically raises an invoice as well. From weeks.
So, how much time have you seen? You've been operating this for a while, and typically, how much time have you seen teams save by replacing their manual processes with automation?
Depends on the use case that you choose, right? In the previous example, we were talking about the invoice automation. There, they were able to save the time from 2 weeks to less than an hour. And there were like a lot of other use cases where they were able to see easily 70 to 80% of savings, right? It's not just about um, the time that you save by automation, right? Just automation. It is automation actually results in a lot of other areas as well. For example, it reduces the number of errors that you make. It gives you better analytics, right? I'll be able to understand how the whole thing is performing. I'll be able to optimize how I'm actually doing certain things as well, right? So more than the time it saves, it also reduces a lot of cost, because if you're actually redoing something or if you're not optimizing how we are actually doing things, that's going to cost a lot of money. So automation actually reduces the time and saves a lot of cost as well, right? Because you'll be able to better see how your function is operating.
Hmm. Interesting. That's really nice. So one issue we come up against a lot of the time in especially with companies that have been in operation for a while and have tech running is the issue of tech debts. So you have
Mm.
companies that build a solution, and over time that solution becomes a constraint, becomes an issue because
Mm.
of these tech debts. So when people create apps using these low code platforms and co, what can be done to ensure that they don't create these tech debts down the road for the company?
It's a very good question, right? So we'll probably go through what happens without these low-code products. All right.
Hmm.
We'll probably go back to the initial conversation around how the business users can't solve their problems, right? We'll probably, if IT can't solve the problems of the business normally try to solve the problem themselves. And there are different ways they do that. Most of the time, they go and buy the product themselves, or they
Hmm.
create their own system. And when they create their own system, IT don't have visibility into what the business is doing. This is what we normally call as shadow IT, right?
Hmm.
So there is a layer that is operates in any enterprise without the knowledge of IT. And in that layer, you have like different products. Data is managed in all these different products. And there is a statistic that said if you take any enterprise, there are at least 10 products that has duplicate licenses, in the sense there are two users who bought the same product, right? So people buying products for their function or a department without knowing the other team already have one, and that is a bigger tech debt, right?
Okay.
Because the data is like scattered across all these products, and there is so many integrations between all these different products, and no one have any control or no governance above all these products out there. And we call this messy middle, right? This is the business
Hmm.
layer, so the whole thing is messy. If you compare that to one platform in that layer, that's a low-code product that can replace all these small tools these businesses use, the tech debt is significantly lesser. Instead of having like 100 different, if you take any big enterprise, there's a study that says there are 200 different subscriptions, right? Instead of having 200 different subscriptions, you have one product. You have better
Hmm.
control and better governance. So I will always argue for lesser tech debt with one platform instead of actually managing two different products where the tech debt is like unbelievably high.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, for bigger organizations that have different departments and probably an IT department, you might have situations
Mm.
where someone in one department builds a solution using this low code products, and another person in another department builds another solution. So, how do you advise that the IT department is kept in the loop on all these different
Okay.
solutions here that they build across departments?
Yeah. Uh, this is a very valid question, right? One of the questions pretty much every CIO asks during the evaluation, because uh, they pretty many of the times they buy the product, give it to business, and they don't know what is happening with business, right? What the business is doing with the product.
Hmm.
And that's where the governance layer comes in. So IT is absolutely okay to give control to the business, but they want to always know what the business is doing with the platform, right? So any low-code product that you have, that need to have a very, very strong governance layer, right? As an IT a CEO of an enterprise, I want to know who is creating these applications and what are these applications and how these applications are talking to each other, right?
Hmm.
So this is like a dashboard because as a CIO, I'm still responsible for the privacy and security of the system of the enterprise. There is a data leak, I am still responsible, right? I can't actually delegate that responsibility to the business. So I give control to the business, but I want to still govern how the product is used. So Kissflow has a very, very strong governance layer, right? That's one of the biggest differentiators for the product as well. So if you are the CIO, if you want to buy a product that gives complete visibility to what's happening in the business layer.
Next up, for companies who want to select or pick a low-code platform that they would like to work with, what capabilities would you say that they should look for while assessing the platform they want to choose?
Okay. From the Kissflow perspective, the first one is simplicity, right? Because you don't want to buy yet another product with a steep learning curve, right? You already have like so many programming languages.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to buy another product that relies on heavy programming, right? That's not going to solve your problems. So look for a product that is extremely simple because that's the biggest differentiator that you have compared to other programming languages, right? Because with this, you'll be able to solve far more higher number of problems than a conventional way of programming. Simplicity and how complete the product is, right? For example, there are like a lot of one-trick ponies. You'll be able to create, let's say, prototypes using some low-code products. You'll be able to create mobile applications using some low-code products. But what you are not actually buying a product for a very specific use case. You are rather buying a platform that can solve many of the use cases that you have. So this is a platform choice, right? It's not a tool choice. Like, for example, to give an analogy, what you're buying is a toolkit. You're not buying a wrench. You're not buying a screwdriver. Rather, buy the toolkit, which actually help you to solve pretty much all the problems that you have. The toolkit will have everything. You choose the right
True.
tool to solve a specific problem, right?
True.
That's what, as a CIO, you try to buy a platform that is extremely simple, that is that allows you to solve many of the problems that you have in enterprise.
So the platform should be simple and should be a toolkit allowing you to solve all the problems.
Yeah.
That's great. So you've talked about governance a couple of times in the interview so far. So what questions should buyers ask their vendors about this issue of governance, compliance, and very importantly, data security? Because there are a lot of privacy laws coming up all over the place.
So we'll probably handle the easiest questions first, the compliance part of it, right?
Okay.
Compliance is like pretty standard in the sense uh, the SaaS or cloud is at least 2 decades old, right? So if you buy any product, you need to have the SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3 compliance, and you need to have ISO 27001, and you need to probably have it should be GDPR compliant, HIPAA, and if you are working with credit cards, you need to have PCI compliant. The complaints that are needed for the platform is like for at least for enterprises is well defined. Just look for all these compliances. All right, that's the first part of it. The next one is governance and security. Security again, it is about other big enterprises that are already using the product, right? For example, if an enterprise is trying to use Kissflow, they do their own pen test. They do their own security evaluation, right? So more and more enterprise companies using the product, you can be assured that product is like well tested because many of the enterprises already done their due diligence, right? And you need to probably ask for like for example, Kissflow's own pen test third-party certifications as well, right? That gives you enough confidence to probably go and invest in this product. And the third one is governance, right? Governance again, uh, talk about three aspects. One, the security, privacy, and visibility, right?
Okay.
In the governance layer, am I able to see what the users are doing with the product? That's the visibility part of it. And am I able to uncover security risk that business users are introducing in their applications? Right? For example, if someone is downloading the data, it's a security risk. If someone is connecting the application to Gmail, or if they are connecting to other enterprise products that they already have, that's a security risk. So first one is visibility, the next one is security, and third one is privacy. The business is building an application, and if they are asking for PI information, they're asking for a credit card information as part of the form, then I need to immediately know. All right. So the governance layer should handle all three aspects, right? So when the CIO or the IT team is evaluating this product, look for a product that solves all three aspects of governance.
As low code, the adoption of low code spreads among organizations, and more organizations adopt low code. How far do you see it spread, and where do you see it become most adopted among businesses?
No, it's at least out of COVID, right? Pretty much every other company want to enable the business to develop applications. That's a huge change in the last 2 years. And there is not like it's not just with one geography as well. If you look at Kissflow's growth in the last couple of years, we have customers in 160 countries right now,
Oh.
right? So there are millions of users using the product because pretty much every CIO knows that this is the only way to transform the business, right? At least if you look at like few years back, IT always saw digital transformation as their responsibility, right? So I need to transform the business. Okay, I should probably do everything. Right now, they are okay to the fact to allow business to be part of digital transformation. Now they are saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do as part of IT. And now I'm going to give you a tool. Use this tool and help us in the digital transformation. All right. That transition is already happening. So this is not like one function where you need to introduce low code. Just open up to the fact that introduce no code products to the business, all the functions in enterprise, and open up to the fact that every function in an organization have problems that need to be automated, right? So we have companies across different verticals. I'll probably give an example. We have funeral homes using the low-code product, right? To manage their funeral services. We have theme park installation companies using the product, right? We have huge enterprises using the product. So it is everywhere. This is a new paradigm, like how we moved away from assembly to Java to Python. This is the new way of programming, new way of developing applications, and this and pretty much every other functions can make use of this.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So the buzzword for the past few months has been AI, and we've seen a lot of cases where people that don't really have this programming knowledge or skills can go into AI and explain what they want. It spits out code and iterates with them and things like that. So when you look at this and low code, how do you see AI and low code intersecting going into the future?
AI is going to augment low code, right? We are talking about the semantic gap. So right now, the current state of no code, as I said, you don't have to worry about programming artifacts. You don't have to worry about schema, tables, and reports, right? But still, you need to understand the no code paradigm. In the sense, as I said, we are giving like a lot of interfaces, which is easy to understand. You can assemble all of these things and create an application. But what AI is enabling you to do is even removing these interfaces. Now, I don't have to even understand how the no code is working. Rather, I can directly talk to the system and get the work done. And if you just extrapolate this, you don't have to even create an application to get the work done.
Wow.
Right? Because, for example, I'll give an example. You have a form where you get the information about all the people who are at least applying for your podcast. But why do you need a form? Because the system can understand the data in the form. If I have to figure out all the people who are at the podcast in the last 6 months, then you need to capture the data in the form.
True.
But that is not needed when you have GenAI. It should be able to get the information from the email that you have sent me, right? Instead of me filling any form for that, right? That's the transition. That's the next level of sophistication in the no-code paradigm. And that is already happening as well.
For our listeners, in case there is something I've not talked about or something you would like our listeners to know about, what would you like to share with them? Or what would you like them to know about?
So mostly it's about the awareness of the no-code products, right? So many of the times, the listeners have the intent and the skill set to solve the problems themselves, but they may not be aware of this paradigm or the tools that are available, which can help them in solving these problems, right? So through the podcast, the request is to actually go and evaluate these products. Only then they'll be able to see how these products like Kissflow can help them in solving their problems, right? And you wouldn't believe how fast this category can explode. For example, give an example. One of the banks they bought 100 user licenses a couple of years back, right? They want to start small, and in 2 years they have 18,000 users using the product. Because the product is so simple. When I am solving a problem, naturally I will talk to my colleague about how I solve the problem, right? Just word of mouth. Every user started using the same tool to solve these problems, right? So it can really create magic, but just that you need to probably explore this and see what it can do for you, right? That's probably the only request from myself.
We've had a very interesting conversation so far. So, for listeners who would like to learn more about low code or would like to connect with you, or probably would like to implement something like a low code platform like Kissflow in their workflows, how can they reach you?
Okay. They can go to kissflow.com, the website, right? And
Okay.
we have a very, very really good presence through all the social media platforms as well, right? So, and our team is available 24/7. Teams are in like different geographies. If you're interested, you have a form in kissflow.com. Just give your name, email ID. We'll immediately get in touch with you and then try to see how we can solve this problem together.
Perfect. So the link to the Kissflow and everything else will be listed in the show notes once this episode goes live in a couple of weeks.
Sure.
All right. So thank you so much, Dinesh, for coming on the show today, sharing with us about low code and the possibilities we have in building products, building automations, and improving our workflows, even without a tech department or tech skills. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Peter. So thanks for hosting me and thanks for all the wonderful questions. I really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Thank you. And for the listeners, thank you for being with us on this for the past few minutes on this episode of the Tech Your Business podcast. I'm sure you've learned something. I'm sure you've been inspired. I'm sure you've had the idea you've had for a long time. I'm sure you've seen that it's possible to get that idea out. It's possible to automate that workflow. It's possible to do more with what you currently have in your company without getting a tech department. So thank you for being with us on this episode of the Tech Your Business podcast. Until next week, when we come with another episode, don't forget to keep teching your business. Bye for now.